As someone who spent countless hours playing Killing Floor 2, I came into Killing Floor 3 with cautious optimism. I didn't get to experience the closed beta or any of the playtests firsthand. But now that I've played the release build of the game, I think so far I'm walked away with mixed feelings. While there were many positives to the game, there are also quite a few negatives that I have. The main negative being performance and constant crashing. And while I do think the gunplay and the gameplay loop is very fun, there is a lack of content here that I think will definitely hinder the game's longevity and fun factor for a lot of people. And some gameplay changes they made might not sit well with some Killing Floor 2 and Killing Floor 1 fans, in my opinion. But with that being said, I do think there's a very strong foundation here for a great game. It's just not the tripwire to expand systems need expanding and fix things in the performance so people have a good time playing, and of course add new content. Hopefully a lot of good free content as well, as there's a lot of paid stuff in the game that kind of I don't like. We'll get to that later. And with that being said, hope you guys enjoy my thoughts on and review for Killing Floor 3. If there's one thing Tripwire still does great, it's gore and dismemberment. Hands down. And it's very satisfying to watch. And very brutal. Heads pop, limbs go flying, and enemies react viscerally to being torn apart. And the Zeds, they look amazing in Unreal Engine 5. They look gross, visceral, bloody, gory, and each one is visually distinct, and the silhouettes help you differentiate them from each other. And at least for me, compared to Killing Floor 2, the gore feel was more dynamic. Zeds now flinch, stumble, fall over. This adds an extra layer of believability to the moment-to-moment feedback during combat. And I think it's an aspect of the game that gets often overlooked, in my opinion at least. While I think this is purely preference-based, I do feel like Killing Floor 3 deals with the atmosphere a bit more than Killing Floor 2. Lighting is moodier. The maps feel more grounded and more industrial. Very grim, and a lot of gore is scattered throughout, especially on maps like sewers, which lean into the horror a lot more than most other maps. While I think Killing Floor 2 had somewhat more arcade-like visual tone, Killing Floor 3 feels a lot more cinematic and immersive. It's a very obvious shift in art style and color, and it's what I think most people might be very divisive and unsure about. But for me personally, I think it fits the franchise pretty well. But I'd love to hear your thoughts on the art style. And as any point I cover, whether you disagree or not, please comment down below your thoughts on. I read every single comment. And while I understand what the developers were aiming for with the new crafting weapon systems, and how it's meant to give players more control, flexibility, and in theory it can work really well, with some of the changes being removing the need for blueprints, which I think is a good step in the right direction, streamlining the process to reduce friction and keeping the focus on gameplay. But even with these improvements, some systems do feel undercooked. Right now, weapon progression lacks excitement. Operating to high rarities doesn't feel meaningful. Sure, you kill Zeds, collect parts, and craft add-ons on paper. That sounds engaging, right? But in practice, the differences between weapon tiers feel very minimal. The stat boosts are barely noticeable, and worse, the progression curve feels broken. And with just a few hours of playing, I found myself with a certain weapon that could outperform most other weapons in the tier list. Like, there's no need to, like, buy stronger weapons throughout the round, because I kitted out my shotgun to just have really good penetration, and it made clearing waves a breeze and fighting bosses easy. And I feel like that imbalance undercuts the entire point of progression. Why chase better gear when you already have a overpowered starting weapon? I can definitely tell that Killing Floor 3 wants to evolve the series with this crafting system, and it's not in a bad direction, but I feel like it definitely needs some tuning to make progression feel more impactful and satisfying. One other thing I wanted to add on top of this is that the perk system feels very rigid, and what I mean by that is that most perks feel like flat stat buffs tied to rolls, which removes the experimentation of the hybrid builds that were encouraged in Killing Floor 2. Don't get me wrong, there are some perks that, like, for example, change the quality of your grenade. Like, I think for the engineer, like, there's one perk that you can get that turns your grenade into a landmine. But, like, perks like that are very few and far between, and most of them are just straight up, like, you have more armor, you have more penetration, like, stuff like that. There aren't any perks that have, like, unique... It doesn't have payday perks, if that makes sense. Or, like, say, like, need to do X thing for this perk to activate. Like, you get +5 armor or whatever whenever you get headshots. Stuff like that, that makes you play a certain way, is kind of absent right now, and I really do hope they add that later on, or stuff like it. I feel like there's no variety or freedom right now when it comes to the perks and build crafting. It feels very limited in that regard. And another thing that contributes to this feeling limited is the fact that all the perks are tied to each individual character. As before, like, you could play as any character that you wanted and look cool, or whatever skins you wanted, and everyone would share the same skill tree, to my knowledge, and that is not here. You essentially have classes that you pick from, and it's... I mean, it depends on the person. I feel like this type of system is very preference-based, but for me personally, I would much rather have just one big skill tree that is shared amongst all the characters. And maybe the starting characters only have, like, different starting weapons. I don't know. It doesn't feel right, and I just wish there was a big skill tree that lets you branch off the different sections and, like, just... I'm no game dev, but I feel like having a skill tree like that would give you more options. Like, one that, like, branches off and give you more variety in what you can do, instead of just being tied to separate mini skill trees, if that makes sense. Like, you can mix and match them however you wanted. Something like that would add a lot of variety to the perk system in this game, I feel. And sadly, we don't have anything like that. And the devs have said perk customization, more of it is coming in the future, which gives me some hope, but as of right now, it feels very watered down. And honestly, you could play the hard difficulties without even having to rely on perks. Like, they feel optional, not required to play the game. And that's a little disappointing. On a more positive note, Killing Floor 3's movement feels a lot more fluid and modern. You can sprint, slide, and vault over obstacles much more easily than in Killing Floor 2, where you felt slightly heavier and movement was a bit clunkier. And on top of that, Z time now only triggers when you get headshots. As you can see on the footage, at the top of the screen, whenever you score a headshot, the little meter will go up. Once it fills up, Z time will occur. So essentially, you can control when Z time will happen. I think that adds a lot more control to the player, and it's honestly a very good change that I really do enjoy and find very, very good. So I'm pretty sure, to my knowledge, in Killing Floor 2, Z time was pretty much random whenever it would occur. Correct me if I'm wrong. It's been a while since I've actually played Killing Floor 2, so please forgive me if I make any mistakes. It just adds more strategy and stuff like that to the game, play loop, and it's really cool. And now it's time for the elephant in the room. Performance. The game is extremely unstable. For me personally, I haven't crashed that much, but my girlfriend who's been playing it with me, she crashes pretty much every match, sometimes even mid-match, and it's annoying her. She is not having fun, which is beyond frustrating. Even when the game doesn't crash, performance stutters and frames drops are common. Even I have those running at the game with the 4080 frame gen, and DLSS are required to run this game if you're able to use those features. And all this performance mumbo jumbo really does make it hard to enjoy the game. Like, don't get me wrong, like, even though I've said all this stuff about the game being horrible and bad and stuff, but at the end of the day, this game is fun. There is fun to be had. but all these little things build up to a much bigger problem the game has. It feels very rushed and unfinished at the end of the day, and it needs time. At the end of the day, I can see what Killing Floor 3 was trying to do, and in some parts it succeeded, but I feel like in the parts where it needed to succeed the most, it stumbled. From the perk systems to performance, like a bunch of stuff that needs to be reworked or have more thought put into it, or even more time and effort. It just flopped in the areas where Killing Floor 3 needed to succeed the most, and that really is sad. But would I recommend the game? I say I still think it's fun. But with what I've told you and what you've heard in this video, please come to your own conclusions. But for me, I'd say yes, but only if it's on sale and only if you get the base edition of the game. You don't need the battle passes or anything like that to enjoy this game. Like, all that stuff's optional. Like, for a game like Killing Floor, you don't need these cosmetics and everything. Like, you'd be fine. And as a side note, the battle pass system. The game does include a battle pass. And if you don't like that, then this game definitely isn't for you. But to my knowledge, I don't think the passes are going to expire, so that's good. And another thing I wanted to mention before closing is that the new Stronghold hub, which meant to be like a social place, is pretty empty. Like, you just use it to walk the terminals. It almost feels like it's artificially extending how long I'm in the game by like just a few minutes, because I have to like walk to the terminal to turn it on and all that other stuff. But there's a bunch of things this game could do better, and I am hopeful for it. I do think the foundation here is great. The bones are there. It's just that the meat is the muscle isn't very strong at the moment. And from what I understand, Killing Floor 2 launched in a very similar state, and it got better over time. So who knows? Maybe the same thing will happen to Killing Floor 3. But you could also argue that doesn't excuse a bad launch, and to that I say both sides are correct. If you're a hardcore fan of this series, you might find this fun in short bursts, especially with friends, but the constant crashes, the dumbing down of systems makes it a tough sell. And I'm optimistic that they'll address these issues in the future. But as of right now, in its current state, Killing Floor 3 risks becoming another co-op shooter with potential and no follow-through. I guess you could say it could become the next Payday 3. But with that, that's all I gotta say. Hope you enjoyed my review of Killing Floor 3. If you did, leave a like, subscribe. See you guys next time. Peace out.